Have you ever felt that split-second moment when one simple sentence from your partner makes your whole body freeze, and all you want to do is walk out the door, slam it behind you, and disappear for a while? Not a fight, not an insult, just one sentence. Yet it hits you harder than a full-blown argument. The truth is, in modern relationships, emotional damage rarely comes from big events. It comes from tiny moments. Moments when someone says something they think is harmless, while the other person feels completely dismissed. And those moments stack up until the relationship feels heavy, tense, and exhausting. In this video, you're going to uncover the 7 sentences women hate hearing the most, not because they're dramatic, but because they quietly break connection. You'll learn what each sentence really communicates and what to say instead to avoid emotional landmines. And the biggest benefit? It's waiting for you at the end, a single communication shift that can instantly defuse conflict and make her feel deeply safe with you again.
Before we dive into the 7 sentences themselves, there's something important you need to understand about how communication works in real relationships. Most people think disagreements come from what we say, but they actually come from what the other person feels underneath the words. That's why one small sentence can create a huge emotional reaction. Maybe you've been there. You say something simple like, "I'm busy," and suddenly the room feels cold. You didn't mean anything bad. You were literally just busy. But she hears something completely different. "I don't want to deal with you right now." This disconnect happens because every sentence has 3 layers: the literal meaning, the implied meaning, and the emotional impact. And if you only focus on the first layer, you'll always feel misunderstood. That's why in this video, every sentence, every issue will be broken down carefully through all 3 layers. You're going to see exactly how a harmless sentence can feel dismissive, how a helpful sentence can feel controlling, and how an honest sentence can accidentally hit an old emotional wound. More importantly, you'll learn how to avoid those traps without changing who you are. Just small shifts in how you phrase things can unlock more peace, more clarity, and more connection than you expect. And once you understand these layers, the 7 sentences we're about to break down will finally make sense, not as complaints, but as roadmaps to deeper emotional safety.
Scenario 1. It's Friday night, and you've both had an exhausting week at work. You're staring at the TV, scrolling through Netflix, or maybe looking at Uber Eats. You turn to him and ask, "Hey, do you want Thai food or just pizza tonight?" He doesn't look up from his phone, shrugs his shoulders, and gives you that passive answer. This is the first phrase, "Whatever you want." When a man says this, he usually thinks he's being easygoing or respectful. In his mind, he's trying to avoid conflict, keep things smooth, or simply let her choose because he genuinely doesn't mind. But to many women, this sentence doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like distance. It feels like he's not participating, not engaged, and not emotionally present in the moment. It's as if he's handing the responsibility of the relationship dynamic over to her, quietly stepping back and expecting her to lead while he stays neutral. On the emotional layer, this sentence often hits a deeper fear, the fear of carrying the relationship alone. She doesn't want to make every decision. She doesn't want to feel like the only one investing energy. She wants partnership, someone who has preferences, opinions, and enthusiasm. So when she hears "whatever you want," she often interprets it as, "I don't care enough to participate." That emotional interpretation is what creates tension, not the words themselves. The alternative is simple: show presence, even in small choices. Scenario 2. Imagine you come home and find the kitchen is a mess again, even though he promised to clean up. You feel a wave of frustration and start venting about how you feel unsupported. Maybe your voice gets a little loud, or you start crying because it's not just about the dishes, it's about the stress piling up. He looks at you, looking completely baffled by your intensity, and drops the line that makes everything worse. This is the second phrase. You're overreacting. On the literal level, you're overreacting. On the literal level, this sentence is meant to calm things down. Most men who say it genuinely believe the situation isn't as serious as it feels, and they think saying this will bring logic, clarity, or perspective. But in reality, the phrase usually does the opposite. Instead of calming the moment, it invalidates her emotional experience. It suggests she's irrational, dramatic, or unable to process her feelings properly. Even when that's not the intention, that's how it lands. On the implied layer, the sentence can feel like an attack on emotional legitimacy. It signals that her inner world is too much, and that message cuts deeply because humans don't want their emotions judged, especially by someone they trust. On the emotional layer, the phrase often triggers old wounds, moments she felt ignored, silenced, or minimized. A better approach is to acknowledge the feeling first, even if you don't share it. Validation does not equal agreement. It simply says, "I see you." And for most women, that alone is enough to bring the intensity down instantly.
Scenario 3. It's 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. You're at work, but you're thinking about him. You send a quick text, maybe a funny meme, or a question about weekend plans, hoping for a little connection to get you through the afternoon. You see the bubbles pop up and then vanish. An hour later, a notification finally pings. It's a 2-word reply that feels like a door slamming shut. This is the third phrase. I'm busy. On the surface, this looks like a simple, factual update. Most men say it because they're genuinely focused on something, under pressure, or need uninterrupted time. But to many women, this sentence becomes unclear when it lacks context. It can feel abrupt, cold, or dismissive. Not because the man is actually being dismissive, but because the sentence leaves a vacuum that her mind fills in with worry, doubt, or insecurity. Humans naturally interpret missing information in the most emotional way, and relationships intensify that instinct. On the emotional layer, "I'm busy" can activate fears of not being prioritized. It's rarely about the schedule, it's about the sense of importance. That's why adding a simple time frame, "I'll call you in 30 minutes," changes everything. It transforms uncertainty into clarity, distance into reassurance, and emotional tension into stability. Small details carry big emotional weight. Scenario 4. You've been going in circles for 20 minutes. You're trying to explain why you felt hurt when he invited his friends over without asking. But he keeps explaining the logic of why he did it. He's getting flushed, rubbing his temples, and you can see the patience draining out of his eyes. Finally, he throws his hands up in the air, sighs loudly, and snaps. This is the fourth phrase. What do you want from me? This sentence is almost always said out of frustration, exhaustion, or confusion. When a man reaches this point, he often genuinely feels lost, like nothing he does is right, nothing he says works, and every attempt seems to backfire. From his perspective, he's asking for clarity. But from her perspective, the question sounds like a defensive wall. Instead of inviting understanding, it shuts down the emotional space and makes her feel like her needs are burdens. Emotionally, this phrase often touches a painful nerve, the fear of being too much. Many women have been conditioned to worry that expressing needs equals causing trouble. So when she hears this question, it doesn't sound like curiosity. It sounds like a sign that her emotional presence is unwanted. A healthier alternative is shifting the tone from defense to teamwork. Help me understand what you're feeling so I can support you better. This one line changes the dynamic from confrontation
to collaboration instantly.
Scenario 5. You spend an hour getting ready for a date night you've been planning all week. At 6:30 p.m., he texts saying he's stuck at work and suggests rescheduling to next Tuesday. You're crushed, maybe a bit teary-eyed because you really needed this quality time. When he finally walks in the door, he sees you're upset and looks genuinely confused. He grabs a beer, shrugs, and says it's just a dinner reservation. This is the 5th phrase. It's not a big deal. On the literal level, men often use this sentence to reduce tension. They feel that if they downplay the issue, both sides will calm down faster. But to many women, this phrase minimizes the emotional impact of the situation. What feels small logically may still feel significant emotionally. And when something important to her gets dismissed with one sentence, it creates a gap, a quiet but sharp disconnect. Instead of shrinking the problem, the phrase shrinks the space for her to feel safe expressing herself. On the emotional layer, it's not a big deal often awakens the fear of not being understood. Women don't expect men to share the same emotional intensity. They expect empathy. The issue is rarely the issue. The real hurt is feeling alone with the emotion. A better alternative is, I see this matters to you. Let's talk through it. This acknowledges reality without amplifying conflict, and it instantly brings both hearts back to the same side of the conversation.
Scenario 6. You're driving home from a friend's barbecue on a Sunday afternoon. The car is dead silent because he made a sarcastic joke in front of everyone about your cooking or your driving skills. It felt embarrassing, not funny. You finally break the silence and tell him that it hurt your feelings. He rolls his eyes, looks out the window like he's annoyed that you're ruining the vibe, and asks. This is the 6th phrase. Why are you being so sensitive? On the surface, this sounds like a simple question, but emotionally, it strikes very deep. Most men say this out of confusion, not cruelty. They genuinely don't understand why a small situation triggered a big emotional reaction. But the problem is in the implication. The sentence labels her feelings as excessive, flawed, or unreasonable. It indirectly suggests that the right way to feel is the man's way, and anything outside that frame is an overreaction. On the emotional layer, this triggers shame, one of the most painful human emotions. Shame makes people retreat, shut down, or emotionally withdraw. Instead of questioning sensitivity, a healthier approach is curiosity. Can you help me understand what part hurts you? This transforms the moment from judgment to connection, from defensiveness to intimacy.
Scenario 7. It's been a rough month. You've been feeling disconnected, and you've tried to talk about it, but the conversations keep going in circles. He feels like he's tried everything. He took out the trash, he planned a date, he fixed the sink, but you still seem unhappy. You try to explain that it's not about doing tasks, it's about feeling close. He rubs his face in pure exhaustion, looks at the ceiling, and finally gives up. This is the 7th phrase, I don't know what you want anymore. This sentence comes from overwhelm. When a man says it, he often feels defeated, as if nothing he does is enough and every attempt gets misinterpreted. But for a woman, the phrase hits a deep vulnerability. It sounds like he has stopped trying to understand her. It sounds like emotional resignation, like he's giving up on the process of learning her inner world. And for many women, that's the most painful moment in a relationship, when the man stops trying. On the emotional layer, this triggers fear of abandonment, not physical abandonment, but emotional abandonment. A healthier alternative is shifting from hopelessness to teamwork. Let's slow down and figure this out together. I want to understand you, even if I get it wrong sometimes. This line doesn't promise perfection, it promises presence. And in love, presence always outweighs perfection.
Now that we've unpacked the 7 sentences and why they trigger such strong reactions, it's time to talk about something deeper: emotional translation. Just like translating languages, emotional translation requires attention, patience, and practice.
Men and women often use the same words, but attach very different emotional meanings to them. And without translation, even the most loving relationships drift into frustration. For men, emotional translation starts with asking, "What is she feeling right now?" rather than, "What does she mean?" This small shift from intellectual decoding to emotional curiosity changes everything. A delayed text stops being an annoyance and becomes a signal. Is she feeling ignored? A curt answer stops being rudeness and becomes a cry for feeling unsafe. Responding to feeling instead of debating facts turns conflict into connection. Emotional translation doesn't mean agreeing with every feeling. It means recognizing and naming it. You sound hurt. You seem worried. You look frustrated. Naming emotion reduces intensity because it moves it from a vague, threatening fog into something concrete you can address together. That naming acts like an emotional subtitle that makes intentions visible. Case study. Picture this. Friday night, they plan dinner. He gets tied up with overtime and texts, "I'm busy, won't make it." She remembers last month when a similar message led to a week of distance. Her first reaction is hurt. She answers sharply. He replies, "You're overreacting," and she shuts down. Emotional translation would look like this. He texts, "I'm stuck at work. I'm sorry. Can we move dinner to Saturday? I know you were looking forward to tonight." That small addition, apology plus a plan, defuses the wound before it widens. Practical habit. When you feel defensive, pause and translate. Replace, "Why are you being so sensitive?" with, "Help me understand what hurt you." Replace, "I'm busy" with, "I'm on a call for the next 40 minutes. Can I call you after?" Micro shifts don't require grand gestures. They require clarity and respect. Over time, they build a track record of presence that outlives individual slip-ups. Bottom line, emotional translation is the repair toolkit of mature relationships. It reduces misunderstandings, shortens fights, and creates a safe pattern where both people feel heard. If practiced consistently, many big problems never grow. They're diffused in the moment with a little attention, a named feeling, and a tiny plan to move forward. Well, now we will moving beyond theory and diving into practical application. Understanding the 7 sentences and emotional translation is just the first step. The next step is practicing what we call micro-presence, showing up emotionally in small, consistent ways that communicate, "I see you. I hear you. I value you." It doesn't require grand gestures, just small, intentional actions repeated over time. For example, when she talks about her day, micro-presence means listening fully, not just waiting for your turn to speak. If she mentions stress at work, don't jump immediately to problem solving. Instead, respond to her feeling first. "It sounds like today was really exhausting for you." That acknowledgement alone reduces tension and signals emotional availability. Case study. Sarah texts Alex that she had a terrible meeting. Alex is tempted to reply, "Just let it go, it's not a big deal." But based on emotional translation, he instead texts, "I hear you. That meeting sounded really frustrating. Want to talk about it?" Notice the difference. The literal facts are the same, but the emotional impact changes completely. Micro-presence also means checking in proactively. Small gestures like, "How's your afternoon going?" or, "I know you had a rough morning. Are you okay now?" communicate attentiveness without overwhelming. Over time, these tiny acts build trust because she knows you notice her inner world and care consistently. Another practical layer is response timing. When a woman shares something meaningful, delaying acknowledgement can feel like rejection, even if unintentional. Emotional translation reminds men, respond in real time when possible or communicate clearly why you can't. Even a simple, "I'm on a call, but I want to hear you. Can I call in 15 minutes?" prevents unnecessary emotional distance.
Case study. Mia is upset because her weekend plans fell through. John is busy with errands and texts, "I'll deal with it later." Mia interprets it as indifference. A micro-presence approach, "I'm tied up right now, but I understand you're upset. Let's talk tonight." Simple acknowledgement plus a plan instantly lowers emotional tension. Finally, micro-presence builds a foundation for emotional safety. Women do not expect perfection. They expect effort, consistency, and recognition of their inner life. By practicing these techniques, small missteps from the past become less damaging, conflicts resolve faster, and intimacy deepens naturally. The ultimate benefit is the same across all examples: clarity, trust, and presence. If you consistently notice, acknowledge, and respond to her emotions, she feels seen and safe. That security is what allows love to grow, arguments to shrink, and connection to deepen. And all of this begins with the small, intentional steps of micropresence.
And now, the biggest gift for you for watching the video until the end: 3 simple yet extremely useful lessons that will help you improve your emotional connection immediately. Relationships don't need perfection, only consistent presence and awareness, and these lessons will give you a roadmap to practice it effectively. Lesson 1. Words matter, but the emotional meaning behind them matters even more. Pay attention not just to what is said, but how it feels. Observing the layers behind the words transforms arguments into understanding. Lesson 2. Presence is more powerful than perfection. You don't need to have all the answers. Just show up consistently, acknowledge feelings, and respond intentionally. That effort builds security faster than any clever solution or logical fix. Lesson 3. Small gestures compound. A text, a brief call, a gentle question, or a single acknowledgement can prevent a misunderstanding from snowballing. Tiny, consistent actions are the secret currency of strong, lasting relationships. Now it's your turn. Apply one of these lessons today. Notice her emotions, acknowledge them, and respond with care. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who could benefit. Let's build a community where emotional connection is valued and practiced every day. Closing line. Remember, love is not found in flawless words, but in the courage to see, hear, and honor each other's hearts. Every moment you invest in understanding her emotions is a step toward deeper connection, trust, and intimacy.